Good evening, everyone. My name is Joy Chen. I'm with the Eaton Fire Survivors Network. I am so excited tonight to present to you Consumer Watchdog, the group that has been fighting for our rights as policyholders in California for the last 40 years. Tonight we have the legendary Harvey Rosenfield. Harvey, does the word legendary get attached to your name like all the time? It's like if you win a
Mostly
Pulitzer,
by you, Joy.
like it just comes with your name. The
Come,
legendary Harvey Rosenfield, the legendary Carmen Balber, executive director, and legend William William Pletcher. Um, so I'm not going to take up too much time because I'm just really excited to hear what they have to say. Let's start off with maybe Harvey telling us a little bit about yourself, Harvey. I mean, I grew up in the 1970s hearing about Ralph Nader, and Harvey is someone who worked with legendary consumer advocate Ralph Nader and then came to California and was the author of Prop 103. Maybe we can just start right there, Harvey. Tell us a little
okay.
bit about what the heck is Prop 103? What were the circumstances around it? And why
The
was
cir-
it shock when it passed? And how does it impact our lives now?
so the circumstances around it were that we were in a crisis here in California, just like we're in now. Insurance rates were going through the roof, not just for a home, but also for auto and business and nonprofit. And the insurance companies in California prior to Proposition 103 had the government had no control over what they were doing or why they were doing it. We had no information. They operated behind closed doors. It was the only major state in the nation that had no regulation of insurance rates. And as a result, there was a lot of misinformation. And when asked why rates were going through the roof or why, if depending on what neighborhood you lived in, you couldn't even buy insurance, the insurance industry blamed lawsuits and lawyers. And in fact, they passed a ballot initiative in 1986 that purported to reduce rates by limiting people's right to sue, which is what insurance companies really love.
Mm.
That didn't work. So we decided to take a different approach. Proposition 103 is about 2,000 words long. Basically, it requires that insurance companies, before they get a rate increase, have to open up their books and justify their rates before an elected insurance commissioner, because at that time it was an appointee of the governor, and the commissioner had to approve those rates. And the insurance companies had to comply with California law. Most people are shocked to learn that prior to Prop 103, the insurance companies were, as a matter of law, exempt from the antitrust laws,
Wow.
exempt from the civil rights laws and the consumer protection laws. And
Harvey, let me stop you right there because I know that as you talk, people are going to have so many questions as well as comments. And we welcome all of them in your chats because in the chats are open. We welcome all of your questions and all of your comments. If you have a comment, you do not need to disguise it as a question. We're very interested in your ideas, your insights as well, because I think Harvey is giving us a lot of really interesting information about Prop 103. It's interesting, Harvey, as you talked about Prop 103, you said that it says insurance companies have to comply with the law. That sounds kind of basic. It seems like companies in California should have to comply with the law just like we do. Um, we often hear that Prop 103 is why insurance companies have never been able to raise their rates and why we're in such a mess now. But I think what I'm hearing from you is that it doesn't say they can't raise rates. It
no, to the
simply
contrary,
says they have to be transparent about raising it. Is that right?
that's correct. Not only that, but under Proposition 103, the insurance companies are entitled to make a fair profit. They're not entitled to pass through all reasonable expenses. They can get any rate increase that they can justify, but that's the key thing. This is the part of Prop 103 that they really don't like and that they don't have to do in any other state in the nation. They have to actually prove with empirical data that they require a rate increase. They have to show that they're in compliance with the laws. And this is the part that pisses them off the most. Prop 103 allows consumers, citizens, to look over the shoulders of the insurance commissioner, monitor what the insurance companies are doing, monitor what the insurance commissioner is doing, challenge applications that are made by insurance companies for what look like excessive rates. And we are right in the middle of that, as many of your people watching tonight probably know. Will, our litigation director, spent the entire day in court fighting with State Farm and their lawyers over that rate increase that State Farm wants the commissioner to approve for over $1 billion. This is
Mm.
the part of Prop 103 that's most important now because the commissioner has pretty much turned himself over to the insurance industry, leaving only Consumer Watchdog to fight for consumers in that State Farm rate case.
So I really want to get to the State Farm rate case, and I'd love to hear what Will, the latest on that from Will. I mean, we're just getting the latest breaking news. But I want to go back. So in the 1980s, you wrote Prop 103. Who were you? You had this tiny little one-person nonprofit called Consumer Watchdog. That was pretty
Yes.
ballsy of you. And how did you win?
Uh, we won because people were really angry. And the more money the insurance industry spent attacking Prop 103 in TV ads, and they spent 63 million, which was a record at the time, the more they spent, the more viewers and voters understood what was at stake, which was what's making the insurance companies fight this proposition so hard? It must be good for consumers if they're fighting it this hard. And we had, of course, the support of Ralph Nader, who's sort of the unsung hero. I get a lot of credit for this, but it was his name and reputation at the time that really took the ball over the finish line. And it was just something that had to be done because California had no protection for consumers. Like I say, the economy was being destabilized by the insurance industry, like they're doing today. And amazingly, people donated an average donation of $8. It was a grassroots effort. We spent about $4 million, mostly on a direct mail campaign to get people involved. They spent 63 million mostly on TV ads. And on election day, to our surprise, we won.
Wow. Harvey, there is something somebody noticed in the chat that the camera seems to go in and out on you. I don't know why that's happening.
I know why. It's this Apple monitor that since tend to move around when I talk,
Oh,
it's tracking my head. I don't know how to stop it. Sorry.
oh, okay. Sorry about that. It is a little distracting. So just to summarize, it sounds like Prop 103, number one, it requires transparency in rate hikes. Number two, it creates an elected insurance commissioner. Number
Mhm.
three, it allows the public into the process of rate
Yes,
hikes. Is that
correct.
it?
That's it.
Basically, just three things.
Well, there
It
were
does
other things that
not stop,
made all those laws apply that had never applied before to give people new rights to go to court against insurance companies.
gave
It,
consumers more rights.
yeah, and it barred some practices that were overt forms of racial discrimination back in the day that they used to get away with.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Um, so then you passed it. I'm sure it was a huge shock. And since then, for the last 30, 40 years, Consumer Watchdog, you've grown it into, it's still a small organization, but it's very scrappy and very powerful. And you really are the defenders of the public when it comes to insurance and many other topics as well, impacting consumers. Um, I'd love to maybe fast forward to now and talk about a little bit about what you guys are up to now. I know that you all are working on like 22 different bills relating to insurance in the past session. Do you want to maybe talk about those, like what you're working on now that's impacting us that we
So
need to know as policyholders?
let me introduce Carmen Balber, who's not only our executive director, but has really taken the lead over the last few years in defending Prop 103 and fighting with the insurance industry for fairness up in Sacramento. Go ahead, Carmen.
It's just
Great.
fighting for fairness, and unfortunately, the insurance industry is on the other side of it.
Mm,
So I just want to add one other thing that Prop 103 did that's really relevant to today's conversation, which is that one of the biggest access problems at the time was auto insurance, where basically if you lived in the inner city, you just could not buy insurance. Or if you were in an area that had a high minority population, you might be able to buy it, but it would be 8 grand in 1988. Totally inaccessible. And Prop 103 said every auto insurance company has to sell to good drivers. So if you are a good driver in California, they have to sell you insurance no matter what insurance company you go to. We didn't put this, or I say we, because I take ownership of Prop 103, thanks to Harvey. But it didn't say you have the same protections in home insurance.
That's
And
right.
that is the crisis that many in California are facing now. Even if you spend $40,000 to make your home nearly fireproof, obviously nothing's perfect, insurance companies can still cancel you. They can ignore all of those home hardening and mitigation steps you do. And that is a real gap in California's insurance protections. And it's something that the legislature did not address this year, did not address last year, did not address back in 2019 when the Camp Fire and all of the Northern California fires really opened our eyes to the risks here in California. So that's one of the things that I'm leading with that because it's one of the things the legislature didn't do this year. But they did move the ball forward on other things that didn't perhaps take the insurance industry head on as much. And I am going to throw up a few slides just because I think it's easier to remember bill numbers if you're looking at them. But
Right.
we'll keep it fast so you don't have to look at it too many slides.
So
So
Carmen, I just want to make sure that I just want to make sure everyone understands the legislative year just ended, right? Like basically
yes.
2 days ago. Oh, it ended last Friday.
No, it actually ended on Saturday
Saturday.
because the legislature
Wow.
amended bills so late that they had to extend the session into Saturday in order to be allowed to vote on their final bills. So it just ended Saturday, and all of the bills I'm going to talk about briefly passed through the legislature either Friday or Saturday and were sent to the governor. So we are
Wow.
talking about wins that are fresh off the presses,
Excellent.
many of which really impact your community. And it's definitely not 22 bills I'm going to go through, so don't worry, everyone. But there are a few that are really worth mentioning. This is the first one I put on the first page because it will be a game changer, not tomorrow, but a few years down the road when this happens, because right now, Californians are being told they're canceled or their prices are going up because of their wildfire risk, but they're getting zero information about what that means. And again, if they go to them and say, but I did all this mitigation, it's being ignored. SB 429 is a bill to create a public wildfire catastrophe model in California. And what that really means is the black box algorithms that insurance companies use to set your insurance rates now for wildfire risk would have an alternative. Consumers would have something else to go to say, actually, the public model says all of the mitigation I did shows I'm a lower risk and try to hold their company accountable for giving them that credit. So I think that's a really important bill. It will take a few years for it to be built, but really important. Then there are three that come from the local representatives from the Eaton and Palisades fire folks. Assemblymember Harabedian authored a law that the governor has that requires mortgage companies to give you up to a year of forbearance on your mortgage. Folks might say, hey, isn't that already the law? But that was really just an agreement between the governor and the mortgage companies to do that. This will actually put it into law and it applies to survivors of the LA fires. So this is really important. Senator Ben Allen authored a bill to make it easier for people to get their personal property contents if you suffered a full loss. He originally proposed a bill that would have said they have to pay 100% if you lost all your property without going through that itemized list that is so draconian and so traumatizing,
Yes,
as
Dee
we've
we
heard.
will, Carmen, you'll share these slides. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dee Dee asked at that.
Yeah.
And also
I'll
on
throw these in.
Senator Allen, I'd like to point out that Senator Allen might be here with us tonight. Senator Allen, you're welcome to say hello in the chats if you are. Senator Ben Allen also today, we're getting all sorts of breaking news today, both from Carmen and Will. And Senator Allen today also just announced for insurance commissioner. He is running for insurance commissioner for next year. So you're getting all the breaking news today. And Senator, if you are here, you're welcome to say hello in the chats. Okay, back to you, Carmen.
So that's a really important bill.
Yeah.
In the process, in the face of insurance industry opposition, it had to be amended so they only have to pay you 60% of your full personal property coverage before that
So
itemized
Tina
list, but it's a
asks
big step
here,
forward.
please speak more on the 100%. So this 495 is requiring insurance companies to pay out 100% of contents coverage without the list. I think it's important to note, though, that this is not retroactive to our fire. So this will apply to future fires. Is that right, Carmen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It'll apply to future fires. And as I said, it did get amended in order to pass to 60%, not 100%.
Yes. It got watered down. I know
Got
that
watered down.
the senator and many people were very sad that in committee, the insurance industry exerted a lot of pressure and moved that from 100 to 60%. Karina.
Which is really one of the reasons I'm so glad to be here with you all, because your voices and your passion in organizing in this network and together as a community really can help change the
Yes.
game in Sacramento. So I think that's a really important opportunity going forward. Let me just throw in this last one, which is another one that does not apply to the current fire, but is so important going forward. SB 497 by Senator Perez extends the wildfire insurance non-renewal moratorium that individual homeowners have right now. You have a year where they cannot cancel your insurance after a fire, to small businesses and other commercial policies, so apartment buildings, et cetera. So, for example, your landlord doesn't lose their insurance and then you get kicked out of your apartment. So all of those are headed to the governor. And then I'm going to skip these in interest of time, but we can talk more about wildfire mitigation if people want to. But there's one that the governor signed, which, if you haven't heard, really helps everyone out right now. AB 493, again by Assemblymember Harabedian, was signed by the governor. It requires mortgage companies to pay 2% interest on the insurance payments that they're holding for you, but won't pay out until you start rebuilding. It used to be they'd just profit off of that money. Now you get some of that.
Carmen, we're having some questions, so I just want to ask them
Sure.
to you. Okay. Some people are saying 60% leaves 40% for the insurance companies. Why? Well, because insurance companies exerted pressure and got that watered down. One
Let
could
me
find a list.
explain that one a bit better, actually, because we
Okay.
did run through it fast. For folks who suffered a total loss, in order to get your personal property contents, insurance companies request that you fill out an extraordinarily detailed list of
Call it the list.
every item, exactly, every item you lost in your house. Some are more draconian than others, but we have heard so many people talk about listing forks and items of clothing, etc. Senator Allen sought to say, in the event of a major catastrophe like this, and if you suffered a total loss, the insurance company should just pay you 100% of that
Yeah.
contents coverage without forcing you to fill out a list that is going to make you relive your trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was amended to say they have to pay 60% upfront without the list. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean they get to keep the other 40%. You just have to fill out the list to get the rest of it.
Yeah. And Carmen, can we just clarify which ones, Julie Graham asked, are these all retroactive? The 493, this does apply to us,
Yes,
correct? The one
493
on the
applies to
mortgage companies.
you.
Yeah.
The legislation to create mortgage forbearance also applies to all of you. The rest of them are not retroactive.
Okay. That's good to know. All right. The list rate does not apply to us. That list one is for future fires only.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Because this is a webinar, please don't raise your hand. You can ask in the chats. Okay, Carmen, is that the end of your run through on legislation? That was really helpful.
That's the end of the bills. There are several bills that have to do with improving wildfire mitigation in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to round back around to them and keep talking about legislation, I can do that. But I know we also want to talk about the state farm legislation,
Yeah.
or I mean,
Yeah.
litigation. I just wanted to add, and maybe we can do it. You tell me what order you want to do it. But I also do want to talk about, some of the things that you all have done
Yeah.
and achieved in this scenario that really have moved the ball forward, I think, for survivors in ways that You rarely see in both at the Department of Insurance and in Sacramento. So maybe we'll round back to that in the conversation with folks.
I would love to talk about, yeah, more broadly, how do we secure our rights against illegal delays and denials? And in the future, how do we get access to insurance as we rebuild, as our current policies come up for renewal? So those are two huge topics I want to get to. Let's just make sure that we have a couple of more questions here on these bills. So we just round them out. Yeah, there's a lot of talk. Of course, the list is very traumatic. The 2% that governor signed do apply to Eaton and Palisades fires. They have to pay, do they have to pay 2% even if they're based out of state?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's amazing to me that Consumer Watchdog has been studying all these bills so closely. I mean, for the last few months, anytime I had a question on a bill, I can just call Carmen on insurance. And I mean, her knowledge is encyclopedic. I don't know how to say that word, but she's an encyclopedia. She's a walking encyclopedia. And it's just remarkable that we have a resource like Consumer Watchdog that's been out there advocating in our public interest. So thank you. I just have to say thank you. I don't think I ever do. Thank you, Harvey and Carmen and Will, for all of that. It's really incredible. And in the coming months, the new legislative season starts in January, and I will look forward to working closely with Carmen and team here in thinking about what survivors' priorities should be for insurance now that we're going into our very first full legislative season post-fire, and we're sort of at a place where we're much more organized. Eaton Fire Survivors Network has 8,300 survivors now. So at this point, as we can look to build a statewide coalition of survivors, we can look to exert much more power on the legislation that's important to us. So you all, I look forward to working with all of you
As
here
do
as
we.
well. So let's move on then from this legislation that we've worked on, that you've worked on in this past session, and start getting into this major State Farm rate hike that's coming up in December. Just to brief everybody very quickly on where we have been as survivors on the rate hike. Starting in April, we started collecting stories from you all of the problems that you're facing with State Farm. And we published a document on our website called the State Farm Files that some of you might have seen. I'll put it right here. And what this document shows is over 400 firsthand accounts from all of you, all of us, Eaton and Palisades fire survivors of abuse from State Farm. I should probably step back and say, someone says Farmers is just as bad as State Farm. We need Farmers address. Absolutely. I mean, we need every single insurance company out there that is illegally delaying and denying to be addressed. I do want to address, why have we been so focused on State Farm? There are a few reasons. First of all, studies have shown, a study from Department of Angels has found that 70% of Eaton and Palisades fire survivors with insurance are now seeing delays and denials that are impeding our recovery. 70%. So that means for 2/3 of us, insurance has shifted from being a safety net to actually a second source of trauma. And for many of us, it's just been absolutely catastrophic. And what these studies have shown is that what's so interesting is within that 70%, there's a massive disparity in how insurance companies are resolving these claims. The two worst offenders are State Farm and Cal Fair Plan. Both of them have over 80% of negative experiences. And then on the other end of the spectrum, USAA and AAA, according to this Department of Angels study, USAA and AAA have over 80% positive. So across the board, what we're saying is that no insurance company should be getting away with delays and denials, because the irony is that California, in fact, has some of the strongest protections in the country. The problem is that California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara has not effectively been enforcing the laws against delays and denials. Now, why is State Farm so important? Because A, it's the largest player in the state. It's the dominant player in the market, has over 20% of the market share. And so how it behaves and whether it's allowed to continue delay and denial, that sets the tone for the behavior of every other insurance company. If State Farm gets away with it, then that basically gives permission for everybody else to continue with this illegal behavior. The second reason, besides them being the dominant player in the state, is that they are the ones who are coming in right now for a $1 billion rate hike. And it's in the rate hike proceedings that the public can intercede. And so that's why it's especially important that we take this opportunity that Prop 103 has given us to say there must be no further rate hikes for State Farm or for any other company, by the way, until they start complying with the law, or until they comply with the law, which means they pay Eaton and Palisades Fire Survivors what they owe us. So with that, Will has just spent the day at the State Farm rate hike proceeding. Maybe Will, you can give us a breaking news update on what's going on there.
Yeah, thank you very much. And absolutely, we hear everyone that other insurance companies are problematic too, and we see those complaints. But it's State Farm that used these fires as an excuse to seek an emergency rate hike, which is really unprecedented. And that's sort of really where the story starts. They were seeking $1.1 billion at that time. We were able to limit that by about 400 million. And again, these are using the principles Harvey was talking about. They have to justify their rate through data and show that they really need it. But that was really just sort of the first part of the process, because that was an interim rate. Now they're seeking 1.2 billion approximately, and we've been battling that since the spring and summer here. Right now, we're sort of in the part of litigation that is discovery battles and lots of motions and lots of back and forth. But sort of the key takeaway there is what we're hearing from State Farm is that they want to shield information. They sought a protective order that would have completely shielded their financial information from the rate proceedings. We heard today that the insurance, the Department of Insurance has a lot of this information, but the insurance commissioner will not use his discretion to release it. So that was very concerning. And so the judge really just sort of heard all these arguments, didn't make any final decisions, did agree with us that it was not appropriate to give State Farm a blanket protective order, sort of an ability to really protect everything without having to justify sort of on a document by document basis. But that's sort of where this that battle is right now.
Yeah.
And
it was so disappointing. Yeah, it was so disappointing that, first of all, Commissioner Lara gave that emergency rate hike without bothering to even start an investigation. We launched a huge campaign with over 350 media stories presenting the truth of what's been happening with our insurance. Finally, he was forced to, in June, launch a market conduct investigation. But since then, at every step of the way in this State Farm rate hike proceeding, he's been moving to try to push through the rate hike before his investigation is even done. Right?
They're looking to not just push through the rate hike, but yeah, to really sort of at various times to sideline issues that we're seeing coming out of the wildfires and issues with State Farm's claims handling. Earlier this summer, we defeated an effort by the Department of Insurance to bifurcate the hearing, to have a sort of a separate hearing on claims issues. We would want them all considered at once, because we think it's important, if you're asking for $1 billion, that you should also be looking at how the company's handling claims. We think these really need to go, in some sense, hand in hand. And and then of course today we heard about the ability to get the information we need might be limited, but we'll continue that fight as well.
Yeah.
And then we're preparing here in December. We've talked to various members that you've helped connect with folks who have stories to tell, and that we're hoping to include in the December hearing as we put together our case there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing here in the chats, no bifurcation. It weakens our strengths. Absolutely. And, it's just been so disappointing that our insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, if you look at his bio, he says he leads the nation's largest consumer protection agency. That at every step of the way, Ricardo Lara has been siding with State Farm against survivors, against the public interest. In fact, Ricardo Lara's team even made a motion to kick survivors out of the rate hike proceedings. They said specifically because of the large number of LA wildfire complaints, we pose a security threat to his team. And he even compared us to Luigi Mangione, the stalker and killer of the health insurance CEO. So, it's just, we're living in a world where unfortunately, the elected insurance commissioner right now that happens to be in office during our fire has, in every step of the way, been not enforcing the law. The fact that 70% of us are facing delays and denials, those are illegal delays and denials. They're not just, they're not just bad, they're actually against the law. And for him to be consistently in court supporting the number one private company offender of the law for $1 billion rate hike with no accountability is truly shocking. I mean, we've had good elected insurance commissioners, right? I mean, it is so shocking, like how this office is suddenly being occupied by someone who has so abdicated this responsibility of protecting consumers. I don't know.
I want to say one thing. If you and EFSN have done an amazing job of putting the pressure on the commissioner to get back to start to at least pretend to care about survivors. And that's a power that will be of enormous value. That is just having the hundreds of supporters that are on this call and around Southern California fighting to make sure that their voices are heard in this rate case has already had a tremendous impact on that case. And that's the only reason why we're going to be able to discuss claims handling before State Farm gets its $1 billion, because you all have put it on the table. So our hats are off to you.
Well, thank you very much, Harvey. We have such courageous survivors. Just so you all know on the call, Harvey and Will had reached out and said, yeah, they want to make sure that whether State Farm is complying with the law and fulfilling their obligations to policyholders must be considered as part of this. So they asked me to provide them a list of survivors who would be willing to go to Oakland and testify. And so we were able to go back to our list of 400 survivors that you can, and we found a few who are willing to, take a day off, go to Oakland. Maybe we'll do a road trip, and that'll be fun because these are issues that impact not just us survivors. They may impact whether or not we're able to recover, whether the entire LA economy is able to recover. This question of whether we can get access to our insurance payouts, but it also is a question of whether every Californian who pays insurance premiums can have an insurance system that they can trust. So I think that, it's so important for us. Thank you so much, Harvey, for that. I mean, it's so important for us to be organized. We have a lot of comments. Let me see if we can bring some of these in.
There are so many comments, and I feel like we're missing so many really good ones. But I noticed one that I think you already have solved, Joy, which was just, can someone share the law about delays being illegal? And that's
Yes.
like on page 2 of your document,
Yes.
calling on the department.
I'm going to put
I
this
think
in
that would be
right
really
here.
useful
Thank
for.
you. Thank you so much, Carmen, for calling that out. I asked everyone to please read this document because this actually spells out what are your rights. We don't know, right? Delays and denials are completely illegal. And so we've spelled out in this document, what are the existing laws so that you're aware of them. And what we've done here is we've identified 5 urgent actions that Commissioner Lara can and must take right now within his existing authority to stop illegal delays and denials, get us the insurance payouts that we're owed so that the LA area can recover. So maybe if I can just take a couple of minutes, I just want to sort of talk you through a couple of these so that everyone here is better aware of what our rights are. The very first one of the 5 is to finish the State Farm Market Conduct exam that we forced him to start in June within 60 days. Okay, that's starting in June, and freeze all rate hikes until the illegal practices end. And the basic principle against bifurcation that we'll explain is that in California, if a company is breaking the law, it should be sanctioned instead of given a $1 billion rate hike. If you or I break the law, we'll go to jail, right? We don't get rewarded. And why? Neither should any company, even if it's State Farm, and especially if it's State Farm. Number 2, end illegal fair plan smoke claim denials. This is so important for every single person here who's suffering under fair plan smoke claim denials. You need to understand they are fully illegal. And number 2, what's so important to know here is that Ricardo Lara, he took a very weak action at the end of July. But what he doesn't want you to know is that he has full supervisorial authority over the fair plan. Ricardo Lara has full supervisorial authority over the fair plan. He could simply have told them they've been illegally denying smoke claims for years, since before our fire, since 2017. So that means in the last 8 years, every single person who suffered under fair plan smoke claim denials, including every one of us this year, has been suffering needlessly. If you are a fair plan smoke claim, if you're suffering with those denials, you're suffering needlessly. And we need Ricardo Lara to turn that around and make fair plan pay you what they owe you. That's number 2. Number 3, ALE. Please read this about what your rights are to temporary housing. Those temporary housing rights are being blatantly violated. We need him to turn that around and make sure that we keep families housed by getting the ALE payments that you're owed. Number 4, require transparency on loss estimates. If you've ever had any adjuster come to your house or any vendor like HVAC vendor come to your house and refuse to give you your loss estimate, how it goes back to the office and State Farm won't allow that to be given to you, you have a right to that. And this says that you have the right to see the original loss estimate, not the one that they cut down and then send you later. Yes, this meeting is being recorded, and you will get a copy of this. Finally, number 5, make the CDI complaint process transparent. We hear all the time that you file a complaint and it's just like paperwork going back and forth and you have no idea. It's a total black box. So we demand that CDI makes a monthly report of all the complaints that's received by insurer and show us the status of every single one of those. And if you make a complaint, you should have the right to see all the paperwork. You should have the right to see what's being done on your complaint. You're a taxpayer. These are your taxpayer dollars at work in the nation's largest consumer protection agency. So, this is a 5-action plan that we now have had we've built a civic coalition in LA. Every state legislator representing the Eaton and Palisades fire areas has signed on. That is led by Assemblymember Harabedian. We have State Senator Sasha Perez. That's on the Eaton fire side. And on the Palisades fire side, we have Jackie Irwin, Assemblymember, and State Senator Ben Allen. They've all signed on to this plan. We are looking to build this in order to put further pressure. We hope to turn this into a statewide coalition so that every survivor group since 2017 also signs on to this, and that every California policyholder is aware of this and also signs on, so that these are protections that we are owed under California laws, and we simply need our sitting insurance commissioner to enforce those laws. So right now, unfortunately, EFSN, we don't have money to hire social media or to hire a political consultant to build the statewide coalition that we need to stop illegal delays and denials. If you were on this call, if you have access to social media resources or a political consultant, or you would like to help to fund or have access to foundations who might be willing to fund this work, please let us know. You can just reply to your email, hello@efsurvivors.net. Is United Policyholders associated with you all? Yes, United Policyholders, we have different webinars with them from time to time about like accessing your, how to fill out your insurance claims. Are we going to get verbiage? Many of these questions about your particular claims, we're not going to be able to get to all of them tonight, but please come into the Discord. If you are not in the Discord, all of these questions are being answered. We have every single insurance carrier actually has its own channel in the Discord. And the reason why that's so powerful is that insurance companies are supposed to treat every single policyholder the same. So in the Discord, you are organizing with other people who have your insurance. So if you get something or you ask someone for something, you ask someone, hey, how is this being treated for you? You can take that right away to your adjuster, and you can demand that as well. So the Discord is such a powerful tool for answering many of these questions that you have here. Please come in, and if you have any trouble getting into the Discord, please just reply to the hello @ and we'll try to help you.
Joy, can I say something?
Yes.
One of the things that some of the people on the webinar might remember is a few months ago, we jumped on and solicited complaints from people. We want to hear about what's happening on the street. And many of your people in the Survivors Network were kind enough to submit a questionnaire that we have on our website. And I'm putting the link in right now. It's consumerwatchdog.org. We are trying to figure out a way to bring litigation that would address some of these systemic problems that the chat is loaded with. It's not going to be a substitute for the fact that some people are going to have to hire a lawyer and sue their insurance company for failing to pay the claim under California law. But what we might be able to do if we get a good fix on exactly what's happening to people is go into court and address these things as practices that should be banned. So that's another tool that we're trying to figure out how to explore. We have lawyers. We litigate against insurance companies all the time. We don't bring individual lawsuits like the ones that people have to bring to get compensation under their policy, but we are really good at challenging illegal practices, and we could try to get a court to issue an order blocking the practices. For example, the rotating adjusters is something that I know that many complaints from EFSN survivors have said, or that I've seen some new ones here in the chat that I didn't even realize were happening. Seems like there's something new. So we're available to take these questionnaires on our website, consumerwatchdog.org. And for those of you, I see some really interesting questions about Prop 103. A lot of those questions are answered there too. Or you could just email me, and I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and I'll answer those questions about Prop 103 as well.
When we started off, we had like 150 participants when we were talking about Prop 103, and we now have 212. So just very quickly on Prop 103, I encourage you to go back and watch that part of the webinar. But Prop 103, just to answer some of the misinformation that's out there, Prop 103 it does not say insurance companies can't raise rates. It simply says they must provide transparency around the rate hikes. And many companies have not been wanting to do that. So Prop 103 is not the reason why companies can't make profits. In fact, Harvey very clearly said Prop 103 protects their ability to make profits. Harvey, I just want to follow up on what you had just said, which is so important. Harvey, I think I heard you say that Consumer Watchdog is looking to find ways to go to court right now and get immediate injunctions against some of these illegal practices. Is that right? Because many of us are looking to hire lawyers. If we hire a lawyer, it's going to take minimum 4 years. Now, I hear from other disaster groups that State Farm has made an art of fighting lawsuits, dragging them out. So it takes like 6 to 7 years. So it takes 6 to 7 years to get any resolution, at some of these lawsuits maybe. And at that point, you're going to reach a settlement, and then you're going to have to give your lawyers 30-40% of the settlement, I think, if you include all the expenses. So that's not really a great way. I mean, that's not a way that we can get money now when we need the money now. But I think what I'm hearing from you is this is not going through private litigation, that you guys think that, or you guys are looking for ways that you can just go to court right now, get an immediate injunction that will happen right away, and we get 100%.
Yes. And it's interesting. The insurance commissioner has the power to do that right now too.
The commissioner has the power to,
he could go
as
to
our
court
document shows.
Yeah.
But if he won't do that,
if he won't do that,
you guys
then
can go
somebody
to
has
the courts.
Exactly. So it's a question of, and I want to apologize to some of your people, because people sent in the questionnaires, and then we've been really badly distracted by a million things that you can read about on our website involving State Farm and other things. But
Christy asked, where is the questionnaire? Carmen, do you want to just drop the link?
I'm going to have to send it to you to put in the email.
We will send you all a recap email tomorrow, and it'll include all of these links. Okay. Thanks for your patience, guys.
Yep.
Do insurance companies have a right to claim? Do insurance companies, okay, Carmen, this is something that you and I talked about the other day. Do insurance companies have a right to claim any of the Edison money?
They do, yes, but they don't have the right to claim it from you. So if your insurance company has paid you and then Edison pays you too, your insurance company can't come to get some of that Edison money from you. So you don't have to worry about that. What they can do is seek a piece of the pot from Edison. So if Edison is only going to pay X billion dollars, they're going to sort that out between the county and the individuals and the insurance companies, because the insurance companies are essentially trying to recover for what they paid you that was due to Edison's negligence. But that money is not coming from your pocket. It's coming from the total pool of money that Edison's doling out.
Okay.
And in truth, some of that is coming from ratepayers, because some of that Edison money is coming straight from a state fund that is a little complicated to explain, but that fund is funded half by ratepayers, Edison ratepayers, and half by the company's stockholders.
Yeah. I'm sorry that we're missing so many of these questions. Jesse Morrow asks, we are all having to pay IHs out of pocket to investigate our smoke damage claim. Is this legal? Well, if it's the FAIR plan, it's not legal, because, if it's the FAIR plan is obligated to cover your smoke damage claim. On the non-FAIR plan, as you see in our paper, as far as non-smoke damage claims, this is a big area for argument right now, correct, Carmen?
So actually, you don't usually hire an industrial hygienist if you don't have a smoke claim, because your home is gone. So you're not testing like the toxins in the home. You would be testing the soil and everything else. So I guess you do have that role there. I think we're thinking more about the testing in the home. And as a rule, those tests are required. But the insurance companies are interpreting your policy in a different way to say that's not within our benefits. And that's why everyone is ending up in this litigation. The difference with the FAIR plan is that the insurance commissioner has already found it's illegal. It's already been found to be illegal in courts. And so there's just more weight of evidence, legal evidence out there that what they're doing is illegal, but absolutely they should be paying for your industrial hygienist bills. The problem is there's not a law that says every
Yeah.
insurance company must pay industrial hygienist bills. It just says they have to pay to clean up the damage that was done to your home. And that's why folks end up in individual litigation, which, although it takes a long time, we should not poo-poo because that is often the only way folks get the money they need to rebuild.
I mean,
Marissa, yeah, go ahead,
I was
Corey.
just going to say, Google insurance code 2071. I believe that's the right number. It says all loss by fire has to be covered. All loss. There's no exception for smoke damage. This is just the way the insurance companies operate in kind of a lawless Western town with no sheriff,
Yeah.
where they just do what they want to do. But eventually they will be forced to pay. It's just a question of how long it takes, how much trauma it's going to take to get imposed on people, on survivors, and how long it takes for the courts to get around to this. That's the real frustrating thing here is that the legal system is so slow. And the insurance industry has unlimited lawyers.
Yeah. Marissa Baskin asks, the public has no idea of what fire victims face. Many think we're handed buckets of money. There's so much information. Why can't this be highlighted more effectively? It's when we put up this report and demanding these 5 urgent actions, the insurance companies are running around Sacramento telling everybody there's nothing to see here. We're taking good care of all these people. And so it is so important. Right now, one of the things that we're hearing from lawmakers is they're just like, well, they don't really know what our reality is. And they're hearing so much from the insurance companies that that everything is fine. And so I'm hearing from the lawmakers who are supporting us that what they really need the most right now is our insurance stories. It's so important that we write out what's going on with us. And then we're going to try to get some money to make a few videos out of those. And basically educate the public on what's going on. So I'm popping into the chat here. Please share your insurance stories. You'll also get this tomorrow. If you can do this tonight, just put in here and answer a few questions about what's going on with your FAIR plan, what's going on with ALE, what's going on with delays and denials, and what is the impact on your family. If everyone could just take 5 or 10 minutes and fill this out, this will be incredible. And this would give us the stories that we need and the backup that we need to be pushing against illegal delays and denials.
Joy, I just wanted to jump in there and thank a lot of folks whose names I've seen scroll through the chat for talking to my colleague Justin, who's working on telling some of those stories right now in podcast format to highlight some of these serious problems that are happening with industrial hygienists and smoke damage cleanup, et cetera. So telling stories is the #1 way that you guys have power, because you're illuminating the problem and you're real people that no one can dismiss. And so that's the core of your power. However much you learn about the law, what you're going through is what is going to help us make change.
Thank you. Where do we send our stories? Paula, I just popped in a chat here, but in the meantime, I think that's a good idea to just set up a meeting and ask everyone to come and bring their stories and to film it. TV needs to broadcast this on every network. Thank you, Ray. If you could please fill this out, we actually have something called the Survivor Media Corps. We've trained 90 survivors in media training, and we have actually secured 350 stories in the media about our insurance. But we're always looking for more survivors who are willing to share in the media. This is just a list of some of the stories that we have generated. So please fill out this share your insurance stories, and then you can be in our Survivor Media Corps. That would be so great. These stories, as Carmen said, are the only way that we will be able to get the attention that we need for the laws to be enforced. have some media contacts. If you have any media resources, social media resources, political advocacy resources, please write us at hello@efsurvivors.net, and we'll get back to you. We are all in this together. And, I think this is actually, to me, so inspiring to see all of these chats going. At the end of the day, I hear from survivor groups around the country that they're stunned at how much progress we have made in just 8 months, the kind of organization that we've built, the kind of, basically how we've gotten so organized around this insurance issue. And they're looking to learn from us. So, I can't, they call me and they're interested in seeing our Discord. They're interested in getting all of our material. I'm always giving away all of our messaging. But I think that what this all, what I feel when I'm surrounded by all these survivors is that for these insurance delays and denials to happen, insurance companies depend on us being isolated. The only way that we can fight back is by being together. And by organizing like this, and by pooling our resources like this, and by pooling our stories, and by getting them out. So, and by having incredible champions like Consumer Watchdog. I mean, I don't know how other survivors would be able to do this without having, I feel so grateful to have Carmen and Harvey and Will on speed dial whenever I have a question or whenever, we want allyship on these issues. So all of us owe a debt of gratitude to them as well as to their colleagues.
We only do this work because people are getting screwed and someone needs to help them stand up for it. So we're here for you guys.
Yes.
And to keep the insurance companies honest.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Ray. Okay, I'm hearing, I will write you. This is awesome. Thank you so much to Joy, of course. It is, it is a joy and a blessing and a pleasure to be together in this fight with all of you. I know that you all feel that too. Thank you, Carmen. I met you at our very first SF presser. Nice.
I remember, Lisa.
We need an alternative way for our seniors to get information and provide stories. Yes, seniors over 80. I agree, Helen.
I think a good place is your First Fridays meetings because you have people there who are physically filming. So you have to do it on your own, right?
Yes, great point, Carmen. For all of you who want to provide stories, please come to our First Friday. We're having a community dinner every First Friday. We haven't figured out quite the location yet of the next one, but it's going to be the first Friday in October. I think it's like October 5th. You'll be notified of that, but please come with your stories and we'll come. Several of us will have phones ready to record. If you're willing to be a phone recorder, let us know, and maybe we can have like 3 or 4 of us filming, and then the rest of us providing our stories. That could be so powerful. We could get a whole bunch of stories that night. Great idea. October 3rd. Thanks, Debbie. Okay. What else? Let me go through this list. If you guys have a question that you want answered, I don't know if Harvey and Carmen and Will maybe stay another 10, 15 minutes. If there's something that you have not yet gotten answered, I'll be going through these chats afterwards and seeing, because I see a lot of great ideas here. So I'll be taking those ideas later. But if there's questions that you want answered by our 3 special guests, would you mind just dropping that again?
I've seen a couple questions from various people who are asking about legal advice they got. And I would just say, if you have your own attorney, please follow their advice. We don't know your particular circumstances, and these are, broad comments that might not apply to your case. So I definitely don't have the answer for each one of those, but, presuming you trust your attorney, take their advice.
For those of you who are asking how to join Discord, please just go to this link, just put in your name and email there, and then you'll immediately get a screen that will give you an invite to the Discord, and you'll go right in.
I did also see a question. If you don't see another one you were about to answer, Joy, I saw 1 or 2 asking for me to give the info about those mitigation bills I didn't say more about.
Yeah.
There's a bill, AB 888, by Senator Calderon that creates a wildfire mitigation fund that will actually be grants for individuals and communities to take wildfire mitigation actions. That went to the governor. Um, I'm not really sure where they're getting the money, but at least people are recognizing that consumers need help with that. There is another piece of legislation that is, now I'm forgetting the number, SB 616, which creates a community wildfire hardening commission to help create some statewide guidelines that we could then perhaps hold the insurance companies accountable to covering. And that bill is heading to the governor's desk. And then AB1 by Assemblymember Connolly, who's way up north, would just require the insurance commissioner to keep reviewing the items that are on the Safer from Wildfires checklist. And for those of you who don't know, there is already a state regulation that says if you take one of 10 individual and community mitigation steps for your home, like replacing your roof, replacing your vents, clearing brush around your home, that you are entitled to a discount from your insurance company.
Mm.
The caveat is that often those discounts are pretty minuscule, but not always. And you should always make sure that you're getting every discount you're entitled to. And so
Yeah.
that bill would require the commissioner to review and add new measures that have been proven to help reduce your risk, because if your house is less risky, your insurance company pays more. So those are the three steps on wildfire mitigation. Unfortunately, none of those bills are holding the insurance companies accountable for recognizing those steps or for contributing to mitigation. I mean, really, the insurance industry should be helping communities mitigate because it's reducing their risk too.
Yeah.
And so far, these bills haven't done that.
Yeah. There was, and also on mitigation, we had an incredible webinar with the SBA last Thursday that I popped into here. And it was just shocking to hear that we can actually get up to $1.5 million at 2.5%, which is like, less than you can, and you can actually refinance your mortgage if you're a fire survivor with that money. And there's also money in there for home hardening, so fire hardening. I have a question for you guys. We've talked about, I think there's basically two major issues for us. One is, how do we get access to the insurance benefits that we've faithfully paid for the last 20 or 30 years? The other one's, how the heck are we going to get insurance in the future? Where is this insurance market going? A lot of people, I think, blame Prop 103 for why the insurance market is such a mess. I think we've already cleared that up. If you've missed that beginning part of this webinar, please go back and watch the first 5-10 minutes. But Harvey, Carmen, Will, I mean, you guys have been working in insurance for a long time, especially you, Harvey, in 40 years. You see what's happening now with the market. Many of us are worried with all these rates going up so quickly that, and all these insurance companies threatening to leave the market, that we might not be able to get insurance as we rebuild our homes. What do you think is the answer from a policy standpoint for that?
I would just say there are two things going on. One is that the insurance industry didn't seem to have a clue about climate change. That's a real phenomenon. It's caught a lot of people by surprise. And it does make it a little bit more, or potentially much more difficult for insurance companies to estimate what their risk is. But the other piece of this, and by the way, Prop 103 addresses that because, as you've repeated several times, Joy, they can get any insurance increase that they can show they're entitled to. And now the insurance commissioner is actually allowing them to use algorithms and models in a very secret way, which is not good. But that excuse has been taken away from them. The other thing that's going on is the same thing, to go all the way back to the question you asked at the beginning. In the 1980s, why did Prop 103 pass? Why did we have to do that? Because insurance companies were making financial mistakes, just like we know State Farm did over the last few years in California. And they want to raise rates, but it's because they made mistakes and they need a scapegoat. In the 80s, the scapegoat was the legal system, too many lawsuits, too much jury verdicts. And we later proved with Prop 103 that that was propaganda, it was disinformation, it was false. Now in California, they want to get out of regulation, so they're blaming regulation for why they're leaving the state. But at the end of the day, California is one of the biggest insurance markets on the planet. It's highly profitable. They will be back. And the question is, I think the question you're raising is, well, like, do we really want them back if they're not serving the California marketplace? And I'm going to let Carmen mention this proposal that we've made in the legislature, which is if people who mitigate their homes still can't get insurance, an insurance company refuses to comply and recognize that measures that the consumer homeowner takes to protect their property, if they don't want to recognize that, then they would have to leave the state, wouldn't be able to sell insurance for 5 years. And it would be an incentive for companies to recognize that it's a privilege to do business in the state of California. It's not their right, and they have no right to demand changes in consumer protection laws in exchange for a threat that they won't do business here anymore. If they don't want to do business, go.
Wait, so Harvey, I just want to make sure I understand what you just said. You guys have proposed that if people mitigate their homes and they're not able to, well, Carmen, do you want to go into that a little bit more? Or
It's like the ACA,
okay,
Obamacare, which
yeah.
requires every health insurance company to sell coverage to everyone. They can't deny you because you have a pre-existing condition. That's an insurance mandate. California has an auto insurance mandate, which says if you're a good driver, which means you have less, you can only have 1 point on your record, then every auto insurance company has to sell you coverage because you're safe. You're a good risk. We suggest we need the same good homeowner protection, which is that if you meet state mitigation standards, the insurance company must sell to you because you have done everything you can to protect your home from wildfire. Home insurance is not an option. Unfortunately, too many people are having to make that choice, but it's not an option if you have a mortgage, and it's not an option if you want to protect your most important financial asset. And so we're in a place where we cannot let the insurance industry only cherry pick the least risky Californians and let everyone else, do what they will to try and survive. We have told Californians for generations they can live where they live today. We cannot let the insurance industry overnight decide 1/4 of the state of California is uninsurable. We're only going to insure the most profitable people. So one way to do that is to say if you make your home fire safe, you're taking the steps you need, then you deserve the right to purchase coverage.
Lynn Miller says, fantastic, Carmen. Home insurance should be the same as auto insurance.
Yeah.
So this is basically, isn't that interesting? It like seems to come full circle. This is the fight that you fought in the 80s, Harvey, on auto. And now it's happening on homes. If they want to insure our cars, they should be mandated to insure our homes. Interesting.
Exactly.
And then I guess there's a question of, so I think what you're saying is if they choose to leave, then they can't come back for 5 years. Basically, they cannot just be half in and half out and constantly making threats.
Yeah.
Then the other question is the FAIR plan, right? Is that there's something wrong with the FAIR plan. I mean, the FAIR plan is not real insurance, right? It's an insurer of last resort, but the coverage is not like a real insurance company. I mean, should there be some kind of a basic coverage that the FAIR plan offers as an insurer of last resort, which is like real insurance?
The reason the FAIR plan, sorry, Harvey,
go ahead,
you're
please.
probably going to say something different. The reason the FAIR plan is a problem right now is because the insurance industry has dumped so many policyholders on it. We didn't have this problem when the private insurance industry wasn't saying, oh, we're not going to insure, all of the Pacific Palisades anymore. We weren't in the same problem. It was always the insurer of last resort that folks would go into and out of. There have been efforts to make
created in 1968. I just researched that.
Exactly. So there have been efforts to make the policy more valuable, but the real answer is not, making the FAIR plan desirable. It's it possible for people to buy coverage in the regular market.
Mm-hmm. I see. So it sounds like it's going to take legislation. And it sounds like this idea of compelling home insurance market to be like the auto insurance market, for basically companies have to provide coverage for people who mitigate their homes, that this is going to be a key piece of our legislative priorities for starting January. Us with you guys, huh?
I hope so. I think there's a lot of questions in the chat about the cost of mitigation, and that is a real problem. No question about it, which is why I mentioned earlier that we really do need the insurance industry having some skin in the game on that front. In other states, the insurance industry has been part of funding mitigation to, they call them fortified roofs and hurricane places. So we need the insurance industry involved. The state has put some money up, and in fact, voters' last ballot passed a climate bond that includes wildfire mitigation money. Some of that should be funneling to mitigation. One of the bills I mentioned is a wildfire mitigation grant program, although again, they haven't really funded it yet. There's talk at the federal level of, I'm just going to stop talking there and not pretend money's coming from the feds anytime soon. Sometime in the future, that should be a source of funds too. But we do need more investment from the insurance companies and on the state level to make this possible for homeowners who cannot afford it otherwise. And the last thing I will say is that you can buy an endorsement or a rider to your insurance policy that makes sure that would provide some funding for this too. Another insurance policy is never the answer for helping folks keep their homes safe. That's not my number one response, but that is something that is in some insurance policies, and certainly requirements to bring your home up to code are. So many of those wildfire mitigation steps are simply building codes now.
Jack Levy asked an important question. Since many of us fire survivors are making plans for rebuilding now, and since making a home, quote, fire safe may be a future factor in the availability of insurance, would it be possible to put together a guide as to what constitutes fire safe? Is there an agreed upon thing that the insurance industry and all of us can rely on together?
So the insurance industry refuses to make that commitment. So we're going to have to tell them to. But the problem is there's still no, everybody has agreed upon what those standards are, but that's what one of those bills would move us towards. SB 616 is one of the bills that's on the governor's desk now that would create a statewide commission that would, by 2027, I think, create a statewide standard so we can all look to it. In the meantime, LA County put together a commission, and one of the U.S. building, the folks who do the LEED certifications, I always forget their name. Anyways, there is a guide to wildfire safe rebuilding that was issued in LA County. It will not guarantee you get insurance coverage because nobody's requiring that from the companies, but it is, I think, a very good guide to rebuilding, and I will see if I can find that before we close down the chat.
Okay. Or just give it to me and then we will, yeah, if you can find it now, that'll be great. Let's pop it in and we'll also send it out tomorrow.
Joy, can I
yes,
interrupt you? I'm
Courtney.
sorry, I've got to hop off.
Yeah.
I want to thank you and everybody attending for this.
Harvey, thank you. Thank you for being our #1 fighter and champion for 40 years.
Your turn next.
Amazing. Thank you, Harvey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Carmen, I guess, do you have any last, and Will, we haven't.
Oh yeah, well, I just saw one quick question in the chat about who funds the FAIR Plan, and just wanted to briefly mention that just because we've got litigation going on that too. The way that the FAIR Plan was set up is it was supposed to be the costs are supposed to be shared by all the insurance companies in the state to fund it. The commissioner put in new regulations last year and the start of this year that wants to pass on half the costs, not to FAIR Plan policyholders, but pass those costs on to policyholders of other of all the rest of the insurers. So farmers, AAA, everyone else. And so that's something we've been fighting as well, just to look at that cost, because that's just not what the law says, and we don't think it should be allowed.
And Will, can you just clarify that? I saw someone in the chat was asking, where are you guys in this analysis on whether you can go for some immediate court injunctions, since Commissioner Lara has been really dragging his feet on enforcing the laws, going through the court system? Where are you all on that? I know you guys have so much on your plates at every moment. But are you sort of like in the analysis stage, and what's the potential timing of something like that?
No, we're definitely in the analysis stage. You know, I don't want to get too far ahead of sort of potential litigation as we get that, but we're looking at it and working through the data that folks have given us, and want to come up with the best possible theories. When we use the word immediate injunction, litigation always takes. We try to do as rapidly as possible, but immediate in a legal sense is not as fast, quite as fast as turning on a light switch or something like that. So we're trying to move that forward, and also move forward on other fronts as well. But we know it's critically important to find new ways to address these problems that folks are having, and that's why we're here.
So we have to address them every way. I mean, the immediate thing that can be done is that we can get Commissioner Lara to enforce the law, which is within his mandate, which is actually what we had hired him to do in the first place. So I think we need to move on all these fronts, right? We need to continue to build out our civic coalition to get Commissioner Lara to enforce the laws that are on the books. We appreciate Consumer Watchdog for also investigating, going through the courts. We also need to be, starting up thinking about our legislative agenda for starting in January to deal with both, not just the immediate issue of our illegal delays and denials, but the longer term issues about purchasing insurance in the future as well.
Well, so much for the invitation, Joy. I think it seems like we could have done this 3 other times to answer all of those questions.
We could go for 3 more hours. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and also our amazing survivors. It has been such a pleasure to be with you guys tonight, as always, our biggest champions at Consumer Watchdog. Thank you to Harvey, to Carmen, to Will. Thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. It's been great to have all of you. Just a couple of upcoming events. On September 30th, we are having PUSD, Pasadena Unified School District President Jennifer Hall Lee. And this will be a parent-moderated discussion from some of our really active parents. And she'll be addressing all kinds of issues, from what's going on with the rebuilding, what's going on with the budget, what's going on with the teacher reassignments. So please join us, for those of you who have kids in PUSD schools, on September 30th. And then also our first Friday coming up, Bring Your Insurance Stories. That is Friday, October 3rd. Please sign up for that. You will get notices on all of those. Thank you to all of you. You guys are all wonderful. I'm sorry for all of the troubles, all the struggles that you guys are having with insurance, and let's pull together and work on them together. Okay? Thank you all very much.
Good night, everyone.
And good night, everyone.
Good night.